the Democrats, coming to the aid and rescue of the migrant in Maryland. And I'll tell you, the DOJ just came out with some new intel that should have them rethinking all of it. Pam Bondi coming forward last night, disclosing that this Garcia guy had actually had his wife in a state of terror, and she had gone to the police because she was fearful for his life because he had physically assaulted and physically attacked her. And I just want to know why the Dems are like, oh, we got to save him. Like, what about actually saving I know the wife apparently thinks, all things are hunky-dory and you move on and families have their trouble. I mean, typically they don't have physical abuse as their trouble, for goodness sakes. Now, should we want that? Pam Bondi disclosing this on Hannity's program just last night. Let's watch.
Tonight to President Trump.
Well, I'm trying to understand that part, and I'm looking at the timeline. I'm looking at what the courts have said about him. I'm looking about what ICE has said about him. I'm looking at even though I'm having a hard time understanding why his wife is advocating for him to come back. Why is everybody saying he's a man from Maryland? What do you make of Senator Van Hollen and this performative art that he's involved in El Salvador, and of which he was unsuccessful today?
Well, America is safer because he is gone. Maryland is safer because he is gone. And that woman that he is married to and that child he had with her, they are safer tonight because he is out of our country and sitting in El Salvador where he belongs. These people are there saying because we needed to do the government needed to do one extra step, they're saying, of paperwork. Here's why. Because initially he claimed there was a rival gang. So he's saying he's a gang member. There's a rival gang in El Salvador, which no longer exists, by the way, that could have hurt him if he had gone back to El Salvador. So there was no ending for him, none, where he would end up staying in this country. And President Bukele made it crystal clear that he is not returning him to our country. Our only job legally was to facilitate it if, according to the Supreme Court, President Bukele wanted him to come back to our country, and he does not want him back, and we do not want him back in our country.
No, we don't.
All right, Attorney General Pam Bondi, thank you for setting the record straight. As always, we appreciate it.
I mean, but Van Hollen wants him back, right? The judge wants him back. Apparently, you're not allowed to return someone who's here illegally and has been in custody and not allowed to leave custody, right? You're in prison and they won't let you out on bail because they believe that you're a member of a really scary gang. And now we learn from Pam Bondi that there was some kind of restraining order from his wife, and the wife is like, oh, no, we were just going through a difficult time. We managed. I'm sorry. Like, you're fearful for your physicality. Like, I don't necessarily think this is a nice guy, but you know what? It doesn't even matter what I think. It doesn't matter if he's nice or not, okay? Let's start with the premise that he was believed to have ties to a known gang that is extremely violent. Let's start with that. That's why they wouldn't let him out on bail. Or how about we start with this? The fact that he was here illegally to begin with. Okay, that's kind of, game over at that point. He's here illegally, and yet Van Hollen, we can't get him out of El Salvador, for goodness sakes. He's out there outside the prison pleading for this guy from Maryland to come home.
I'm here with Chris Newman, who is the attorney for the wife and mother of Kilmar Albergo Garcia. And we just tried to go visit him in prison just to check on his conditions. Is he doing okay? Because nobody has any communication with him since he was illegally abducted from Maryland and sent to CCOT prison in El Salvador, which, as a U.S. District Court judge said, was a violation of all his due process rights. Today's purpose was just to see what his health condition is. And these soldiers were ordered to prevent us from going any farther.
Blah, 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 blah. You keep going. You know what? I just got to say, you are bending over backwards, flying yourself down there to El Salvador. The media's all over this. They're making a martyr out of the guy, making him into something he's probably... Again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's the greatest guy in the world. They deported him back to his home country. And now his home country has an opportunity to either let him out of the prison, or I'm told from one source, this is not double or triple confirmed, that it is believed that they have something on him there. So this is not like asylum. He wasn't looking for political asylum. Heck, maybe at some point he could get it now. I don't know. It's getting kind of convoluted. But this is not an asylum case. You don't have the right to say, I mean, I get it. Like, El Salvador's a bad place. Thank goodness Bukele came in there and started cleaning it up, right? The murder rate has plummeted thanks to his law and order policies. I know nobody likes that, but on the left anyway, but that is the reality of it. So you were deported to your home country. You weren't here legally to begin with, and now your country is making the determination over your future. And I realize, yes, you want to kind of save everybody, but you can't. Why are you making such a martyr out of this guy when you can't do squat for, say, the poor Maryland mom who lost her daughter to the hands of an illegal migrant? I get it. Before they say, oh, it's apples to oranges, whatever. It's not perfect, right? This is not a perfect analogy because everybody's an individual. However, the optics, they don't look good. All right, guys? I'm telling the Democrats right now, because you want to get your act together, don't you? For 2 years from now or 4 years from now, I'm telling you, this is not a winning story. This, on the other hand, this will tug at your heartstrings. The poor Maryland mother getting comforted by one Donald Trump there in the White House today. I mean, this poor woman, she's looking at Van Hollen saying, what the heck?
Beautiful.
A dear friend.
She's a beautiful woman. She's been through hell. She's been through hell, right?
Oh, yes.
Your daughter's looking down proud of you. You know that. Just keep it going.
I know.
Keep it going.
It's like you said.
Stay with that one.
It's like you said, we have a purpose.
It's a purpose. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
She's proud of you.
Oh, I got chills when I saw that. That was Patty Morton. Her daughter, Rachel, was killed violently, and it's a horrible story, and it's sad, and I just think that it's probably not the best optics to be out there fighting for the guy who was, dare I say, the wife beater. I'm sorry, the whole thing's on file. Nobody wants to admit the truth around here, for goodness sakes. But yeah, he's not like the stand-up guy that you all, I'm sorry, again, I'll go back to the police report and the fear that she felt, okay? That the wife felt. Anyway, the Maryland mom, Patty Morin, was speaking to reporters today, and it's heartbreaking. We should see
to
it.
have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledged my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen. Why does that person have more right than I do, or my daughter, or my grandchildren? I don't.
No, it's not understandable, and the truth is they don't have more rights. But the way the left has approached this entire ordeal, you'd think that they did. I'll tell you what. Americans are not buying this, not one bit. Americans are on the side of Trump and the deportations. And when you look at the MAGA voters, have they been swayed? No, they have been emboldened. Everybody thought, okay, well, the markets are in turmoil, and I'm trying to explain to them, you know what? I don't think the average person cares about that. Not yet, anyway. Sure, if we get a recession, then you're going to have other challenges, for sure. But right now, they're looking at, okay, inflation is coming down, and Donald Trump is doing something about illegals that are potentially violent criminals in this country. Why you would stand against deporting illegals that are potentially violent criminals, I don't know. But you know what? CNN is shocked by this. Harry Anton's having some fun here looking at the newest polls.
Let's talk about Trump voters and how they feel. Do they regret their vote?
I mean, this is the big question, right? I hear all these stories. all these articles. All the Trump voters, they regret what they did back in 2024. I'm here to tell you, very few of them regret what they did back in 2024. What are we talking about? Trump voters looking back at 2024. We got a new poll out. The poll was conducted this month. What percentage would change their vote to a different candidate? We're talking just 2%, just 2%. That's not even a wide spot on the road. And then there's this additional 1% who say they would rather not vote. We're talking overall under 5% might or would have changed their vote, Donald Trump voters back in 2024. And then you ask, okay, the same question of Kamala Harris voters, and it turns out the numbers are rather similar. So if there was a repeat, if folks got to be able to redo their vote that they had back in 2024, would the result be any different? I doubt it would be. I doubt it would be, or it would still be extremely close. The bottom line is, for all this talk of Trump voters regretting their vote, in the numbers, it really just doesn't show up, John.
So the stickiness with Trump voters and President Trump in this presidency, how does it compare to his first presidency?
Yeah, okay. So, I was interested in sort of a historical analogy here, sort of, does this look similar or different from back in 2017, looking at 2016? Well, in February of 2017, 4% of Trump voters say they'd shift their vote. That's actually slightly more than the 3% this time around. So, you look back, you say, okay, there's these Trump voters who really regret their vote. Historically speaking, they really don't regret their vote. And if anything, the number this time around is actually smaller than it was the first time around. And it's certainly smaller than the number we saw coming out of 2020, of course, after the events of January 6th. So the bottom line is this. If there's some idea out there that Trump voters are going around, man, I wish I had voted for Kamala Harris instead of Donald Trump, the numbers say that is a fanciful universe. It really, for the most part, does not exist.
What about the...
Nope. Doesn't exist. No. America's with them on this. I mean, all the polling shows it. This is what you call logic. Stephen Miller, oh gosh, he was really good. Was he not on Fox this week trying to explain it?
Number one, DOJ said a federal court cannot compel the executive branch to engage in any mandated act of diplomacy or incursion upon the sovereignty of another nation. So your argument is that you don't have to bring him back home, but will you?
So I want to correct, I hate to do it, Bill, but I got to correct you on every single thing that you said because it was all wrong. First, we won the Supreme Court case, clearly, 9-0. A district court judge said unconscionably that the president and his administration have to go into El Salvador and extradite one of their citizens, an El Salvadorian citizen, so that would be kidnapping, that we have to kidnap an El Salvadorian citizen against the will of his government and fly him back to America, which would be an unimaginable act and an invasion of El Salvador's sovereignty. So we appealed to the Supreme Court, and it said clearly, no district court can compel the president to exercise his Article 2 foreign powers in any way whatsoever. DOJ called me after that Supreme Court ruling, and they said, this is amazing. We won this case 9-0. We are in excellent standing here. So this has been portrayed wrong for 72 hours in the media. They said the most a court could ever compel you to do would be to facilitate return, which would basically mean if El Salvador voluntarily sends him back, we wouldn't block him at the airport. We would put him back into ICE detention, and then he would be deported either back to El Salvador or somewhere else. The Supreme Court said that is the most the government can be expected to do. So we
right, because he's from El Salvador. So what are you supposed to do? Okay, whoops, maybe you didn't mean to deport him. They've come out and said that, but they sent him back to his home country. Like, are they supposed to actually now infringe on the sovereignty of El Salvador? El Salvador, by the way, totally telling Van Hollen, go take a hike. Like, we'll deal with this on our own, thank you very much, or talk to the Trump administration, but we're not about to release him to you, buddy. Not happening. It's just amazing. Like, the Democrats are so off on all of this. Like, the optics have been so bad. You got Bondi announcing her case against Maine, right, because of the Title IX funding with people that are born as boys competing against people that are born as girls. Can you believe I have to say this? Even the UK is like, sorry, a woman's a woman. They just came out with the ruling yesterday saying, yep, the unanimous decision in this court is that in terms of woman and sex in the Equality Act of 2010, referring to a biological woman, it does refer to a biological woman. It's a biological sex. And yet, for some reason, they don't understand that up in Maine. The Democrats are just on the wrong side of every single issue over and over and over again. This is what what's happening. And I think back to, this particular soundbite I'm going to play you from Scott Jennings, who gets just beaten up, although he sure gives it back. Does he not on CNN every night? This is good. Watch.
I think this whole revolution of common sense idea that Trump is pushing, this is the issue that maybe people associate with it the most. Because if there ever was an 80-20 or a 90-10 issue in America, it's this one. I mean, President Trump had the young athlete at the State of the Union the other night who'd been really injured in a volleyball game over it. I saw people posting video of that horrific injury, and I still saw liberals on social media laughing at this person's misfortune. And so I think the Democratic Party is torn up about it, but the American people aren't. Trump used it to political advantage, but then they expected him to do something about it, which he has done. If Democrats don't get on the right side of at least one 80-20 issue in America, they're going to lose again in 28.
They will. They will. And then they got people like George Clooney not really helping their cause. George Clooney going on CNN and making a you-know-what of himself all over again. Of course, the anchor that he's talking to is certainly making a you-know-what of himself as well. Jake Tapper interviewing George Clooney. I mean, could it get any more cringe? Really? I mean, these are the guys that took him down. These are the guys that took Biden down. I was saying it at the time. Jake Tapper was a mouthpiece, kid you not, for whatever David Axelrod and others wanted him to do. There was a movement within the Obama camp. And so they had their guy on CNN and they had their Hollywood actor that they could get to write this op-ed to just tear Biden down. And Clooney's like, oh, it was my patriotic duty. I had to do it. Here, just watch him briefly.
You yourself did something that a lot of people would call brave when you wrote your op-ed.
Well, I don't know if it was brave. It was a civic duty, because I found that people on my side of the street, I'm a Democrat. I was a Democrat in Kentucky, so I get it. When I saw people on my side of the street not telling the truth, I thought that was time to.
Are people still mad at you for that?
Some people, sure. It's okay. Listen.
Can I stop for a second? What the heck is a Democrat from Kentucky? Is that his way of saying, don't forget. Don't forget. I mean, it was the Republicans, right, who freed the slaves. I'm just saying that was Lincoln's party. So when you say you're a Democrat from Kentucky, I don't know what the heck you're trying to communicate with that one, buddy. Oof.
Some people, sure. It's okay. Listen, the idea of freedom of speech, the specific idea of it is, you can't demand freedom of speech and then say, but don't say bad things about me.
Right.
That's the deal. You have to take a stand if you believe in it. Take a stand for it, and then deal with the consequences. That's the rules. And so when people criticize me, they criticize me because of my stance against the war 20 years ago, and so people picketed my movies and they put me on a deck of cards, and I have to take that. That's fair. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with criticism for for where I stand. I defend their right to criticize me as much as I defend my right to criticize them.
Yeah, whatever. You so don't. We know you don't. Please, nor does CNN. Remember when Jake Tapper was like, how dare you to Lara Trump? Because Lara Trump was, in Jake's eyes, suggesting that Biden had a stutter and therefore was making fun of people with stutters. And she's like, no. I've just seen that people decline at points in their life. And this strikes me as somebody who's declining. And he's like, how dare you? How dare you? I mean, these people are so phony. And they're going to shove this nonsense down your throat again. I'll tell you, they lost anyway. They were trying to save the day. They thought that Joe Biden was going to lose. They thought, okay, if we get rid of him and we bring in Kamala, oh yeah, that'll work. That'll really work. I mean, I actually think that Joe Biden would have done better because you really annoyed people in the Democrat Party by subbing them out like that. That was part of the problem, right? Part of the big problem. Quick reminder that I'm so happy to have partnered this year with Herzog Foundation. If you're interested in a Christian education, I highly recommend you check these guys out, because you look at the Clooneys of the world and you look at all these nut jobs out there out in Maine, for goodness sakes. If I lived in Maine, I think I'd really want to go to herzogfoundation.com right now, because it is a foundation. It doesn't cost you anything. Go and look at it. They have so many ideas on how you can educate your children. If you have children, if you have grandchildren, if you have nieces and nephews, go look at that, because it's all about a Christian education. And these days, with everything that's happening, boy, do we need it. I'll say Donald Trump's doing a lot, though. He's doing a lot. Things are progressing. We're moving in the right way. All of it is good news, but it's going to take time. So if you're interested in an education for your children that really puts an emphasis on values, Christian values, I encourage you guys to go check this out. Again, I'm so proud of the partnership. I really am. It's a wonderful thing that I'm excited to be involved in and excited to share.